Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Wedding Buzz podcast. Today we have a special guest, John Daidone. He's a seasoned food service professional with an impressive 44 years of experience in the industry. Throughout his outstanding career, John has had the privilege of providing catering services to numerous celebrities and prestigious events. One of the highlights of John's career was his involvement with NBC Studios in New York. He had the opportunity to cater for various high-profile shows, including the iconic NFL show and the legendary Saturday Night Live. And other notable events include the Hampton Classic Horse Show in Bridgehampton, New York, and preparing a special dinner for Senator Ted Kennedy at the famed Kennedy home in Palm Beach, Florida. Having owned and operated a successful restaurant in Delray Beach for a remarkable 18 years, John has had a wealth of experience in managing and running his own establishment. Today, he is the proud operator of Daidone Dining Services, located in Boca Raton, Florida. His company specializes in providing top-notch catering services for private schools and various events in the area. John's expertise, professionalism, and dedication to delivering exceptional catering experiences have earned him a stellar reputation among clients in the community alike. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Sydney. Happy to be here.
And aside from all of that great experience that you have, he's been a family friend and like another dad to me. So I'm super excited to have you on to talk about catering, specifically for weddings today. So the food at a wedding is always a hot topic, and it's always something that the guests like to talk about. So what are some things that the bride and groom can do in advance to make sure that the catering will be good?
Well, in today's marketplace for weddings, you can go to a hotel, or you can go to a wedding turnstile. There are many of them, and be prepared to spend a lot of money to do that. Mm-hmm. The choices are taken care of for you. The details are taken care of for you. And, you're going to pay a big buck to do that. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you can go rent a facility and kind of keep things in check for yourself, meaning you can hire your own caterer. You get the rental company to come in. You pick your own rentals, your flowers, your music, so forth and so on. You have a little bit of a deeper range to keep things in your budget. Mm-hmm. By doing it that way. Finding the location is another issue. There are plenty out there, but you need to find the one that suits your needs the best.
Yeah, and some venues will include the catering, and then sometimes you have outside catering. When it comes to food, you and I were talking personally about certain foods just will be presented better than others when it comes to a wedding. What are some safer food choices, or how do different foods dictate how well the food will be when the guests are eating it?
You got to remember, when you have 150 people at a wedding or 200 people at a wedding, this food is not being prepared to order. It's being prepared ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep that in mind, that it's got to be plated, it's got to be kept warm, and it's got to be served. And with time, your food tends to lose its quality. Mm-hmm. So with that said, you have to have, an open mind of where the quality is going to be, no matter how much you're paying for the food. It's just going to be so good because of the logistics that are involved. Mm-hmm. Other ways you can handle things. A buffet is one way to serve a lot of people with a lot of different choices, but one way I like to do it is to create stations where we're cooking on site. Mm-hmm. So now the food is fresh. It's a show for you to see it being done in front of you. It creates more of a grazing situation where people can mill and talk to the other guests and enjoy their time while they eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that stations are becoming a popular thing, and it's a little bit more of a modern trend. But I like it because something else that's popular these days is an entertainment factor at weddings, and it almost provides both of those, of fresh food cooked on site, and then the entertainment of people are watching it prepared and they're excited of what's over there, what's over here. So I was going to ask you about buffet versus plated, but you like stations.
Well, I do, and I also like buffet. I know you had told me a horror story the other day about some of your family members who had gone to a wedding and they ran out of food on the buffet and they were scouring to get some food back onto the buffet.
My in-laws, my husband's parents were at a wedding and they literally ran out of food at the buffet.
And honestly, that should never, ever happen.
Now, is that on the bride and groom or is that on the catering company?
That's on the catering company. As a caterer, you have to understand how much food to prepare and how much to offer. Look, there's only so much a person can eat. But if you've got all these different choices, human nature is that they're going to want to take a little bit of everything. Okay, so if you're putting a salmon, a beef, and a chicken protein out, and they want to taste it all, and the salmon is too big, well, yeah, they're going to take that salmon, they're going to take the beef and the chicken, and then they're going to throw half of it away. Yeah. So the caterer has to make smaller portions so people can taste everything, and they have to have enough. And it's okay to have extra. You just got to build it in.
Right.
You just can't run out. It's just cardinal sin. You just cannot
No, but
run out of food.
that is a good thing to keep in mind because people at a buffet might offer like a beef and a chicken thinking that their guests will pick either or. But chances are a lot of people are going to take both. It's
human nature. They see a buffet, their eyes are bigger than their stomach, and they're going to fill that plate as much as they possibly can. Yeah. It's just the way things are.
Now, when it comes to like a beef, a chicken, a fish, is there a safer option that you suggest people go for?
Yes, anything in chicken, whether it be grilled or it has to have a sauce on it. Okay. So let's say a franchise or a piccata or a marsala or something along those lines. The chicken can sit in a chafing dish and be warm and not dry out. A fish, a grilled salmon is always a great way to go. You can put any sauce you want on it or teriyaki, grill it. It's just, a glaze on it. It just works. As far as beef is concerned, I don't like putting beef on a buffet. I like to carve a beef, whether it be a filet or a New York strip. I wouldn't go anywhere beyond those two pieces of meat. I don't think it's just worthy of any buffet.
And is that just because a carved meat like holds better?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And, when it comes to beef, people want to have well done, rare, medium rare. Well, when you're cooking a piece of beef, the ends are a little bit more well done, the middle is a little bit more rare, so forth and so on. So you can accommodate as people are coming through the line. And also, it's a show.
It's back to that entertainment factor.
Exactly, right. Or do a pasta station where you're actually cooking the pasta and creating the dish in front of everybody, and it's fresh all the time. And you just keep making it, putting it into a small shaver, and just keep making fresh all the time. So people love to see that happen. A lot of people don't know how to cook at home. They have no idea.
Not very good at it myself.
A lot of people are not. I mean, that's why people go out to restaurants and they buy packaged foods and so forth and so on. They just don't have the time to understand how to prepare a meal at home. Yeah,
I think it's really good for our listeners to hear because a lot of them might not know that why serving a steak at a buffet might not be the best option. But the carved meat is a really good thing to think about because you're right. I've been to a buffet where it's like, what section do you want? And where I know my dad would choose more of the middle piece. My mom wants the end. She wants it burned.
Exactly.
But you can get that variety. We touched on it a little bit earlier about the timing of serving the food. And now my big thing with weddings and in my program is the logistics and the day of timeline and making sure things goes as planned. And I think the caterers get blamed a lot if the food isn't perfect when people forget, hey, what time did you tell the caterer to serve the food? So if you're telling the caterer, hey, we want dinner at 7:00, but you guys don't plan well, the wedding is running behind, and now dinner's not being served till 7:30, 7:45, 8:00, and it's not that the food wasn't prepared, but it's that your guests weren't seated, the wedding, the ceremony fell behind, which caused cocktail hour to fall behind.
Right.
How does that affect the food and how it tastes and the overall?
Well, in a sit-down situation where it's being plated, the consequences are huge. Okay, so if you tell me 7:00 we're going to be eating, I need to start plating the dinner out prior to that. If you get delayed half an hour, this food is now going to be sitting on the plate in a warmer until you're ready for it because you told me 7:00.
And if you have 100 guests, 150 guests, can you have the whole plate, the food plated in warmers?
Yes.
Logistically,
if the facility has that.
Okay.
Okay, now remember, if you're off premise and you're in a location somewhere, look, I've done events where we're in a potato field and I built a kitchen. Okay, and we make it happen. Anything is possible. But if you're in a facility that doesn't have those warmers, how am I going to keep this food warm if I'm plating it out?
Right. And you're doing what you're supposed to do, plating it
Exactly.
prior.
Right. It's the only way I can get it out to you in a timely fashion. Because, of course, there's salads that need to go out first, so forth, so on, and then the dinner has to go out, and dishes have to be cleared, and then we're into a dessert mode, so forth, so on. So it's an orchestrated event. And if you tell me one thing and it's half an hour, 40 minutes later, a little story, we did Senator Kennedy. It was at the home in Palm Beach, 110 people. We're doing a grilled filet with a béarnaise, and it gets delayed. Now, how the heck am I going to grill filet, okay, and then put a béarnaise, which will break if it's being held at the wrong temperature or you hold it too long, and he's backing it up a half an hour. You talk about stress. That was a very, very stressful event that we
And when
had
you
to
say,
do.
sorry to interrupt, when you say break, what do you mean? Like the sauce, like
The sauce,
separating?
yeah, exactly.
Separating? Okay. Yeah.
So, there are a lot of different things that can happen that could cause a catastrophe if things aren't running smoothly. All right. So a good caterer will understand how to take care of these things, have a qualified staff on hand, chefs who know what they're doing to get it done. Okay.
That sounds really stressful.
Not everyone's got that, but
Yeah.
at least I tell you they do. So,
Yeah. And then, I mean, when picking a caterer, what can the bride and groom do? Just go off of their experience, their reviews?
Yeah, again, if you're going to use a seasoned catering house that just does weddings, they do 3 weddings a day on the weekends, 1 during the week. When you do something like that, really it's going to be a cookie cutter type of event. They have their packages. The aesthetics may be just wonderful, and you got to have it there. But it's just a machine. It really is. It's when you go off premise. Now you have to understand the caterer who's involved. They got to have the equipment, the knowledge, the staffing to be able to pull this off. We did an event in Boynton Beach. It was a wedding, 2-story facility, elevator, stairs, buffet is upstairs, kitchen's downstairs. Kitchen has no cooking facility, even though they had an oven, it didn't work. I had to bring an oven in, it didn't fit into the kitchen, so I had to cook some things on the outside of the kitchen. But it was a barbecue type menu. We could hold it, I could get it upstairs and set it, so the food, the menu was planned ahead of time, that the logistics were not going to get in the way of this.
And is that something like before you say yes to a job, do you look into like the kitchen and the facility and the prep space?
Absolutely. There are so many details to a wedding. You really need to understand what can go wrong. So you need to go on site, and you really should bring your caterer with you. So you understand, both of you understand, where the borders are here. What can we do? What can we not do? Even though the bride may have this wonderful thought in her head, this is how I want it.
This is what I want.
This is what I want. And it's just not going to work.
My day.
It's just not going to work. So let's shift. Let's pivot here. Let's look at something different.
So I think for the bride, it's important to make sure that your caterer is asking these questions of like, what is the location? What is the prep space? And your caterer should be wanting to go check out the venue.
Absolutely.
And as the bride, you should be open to their suggestions, because if your caterer is saying, hey, we really can't make this type of food, it's probably not that they're not trying to be accommodating, but they're trying to help you help yourself, you know?
Right. If a caterer is telling you, no problem, ask more questions.
Yeah. Ask more questions.
Ask more questions, because you have to use your common sense and understand that if there's no cooking facility in here, how are you going to prepare X, Y, Z? Are we bringing in a kitchen? Which you can do. But then I need a tent to put the kitchen into.
And the budget, I'm assuming.
Budget's going to go up.
Yeah.
Yes. So, like I said, there are a lot of parameters and details that need to be addressed and planning. And during a wedding, it's a stressful time. And in the infancy of the whole thing, that's probably some of the things that you need to actually attack and understand. This way you could do the planning going forth once you decide this is the place, this is the caterer, and all these things are taken care of. Now I can plan this thing efficiently without having surprises at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, surprises are never good on wedding day.
No. We had a dad who changed the seating arrangement at a wedding, and the bride came in and looked, and she saw all the tables were changed, and she just had a meltdown. And it's just not a good thing. It's a very emotional day.
It is, and that I say that a lot of my goal is to make sure that the only tears on wedding day are happy tears. So preparing and having these conversations, even though when you're a bride, thinking of the logistics of cooking food is I don't want to think about this, but if you want your wedding day to go smooth and the food to be warm and fresh, it is stuff that the bride should be thinking, or the groom, but the couple should be thinking of in advance. So when it comes, I'm going to jump back to something we were talking about earlier on buffet, plated versus stations. When it comes to the budget, how does that work? Stations sound really cool and modern and entertaining. Does that jack up the price? Is a buffet more affordable? Or, because I feel like there might be some pros and cons within the three options.
Yeah, the service aspect of planning any wedding for dinner, obviously if it's a plated dinner and we're doing table service, then you need so many servers per table. I was at a wedding one time and, they had 10 servers drop the salad at the same time. And it was a visual thing. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine how many servers they had because there was over 200 people at the wedding. Mm-hmm. So with that, you need a lot of staff, which is going to cost. Mm-hmm. All right. So with a station situation, you need to have a chef at each one. Most caterers will charge you a chef charge for that person to operate that station, okay? Then you need service staff to come around and clean the dishes and so forth and clean the dining room and keep things looking neat, okay, and service the guests. So there's your difference. If it's just a flat-out buffet, you don't need all that service staff to go to each table. You need them to clear the tables and to service the buffet, but you only need several people to service the buffet because you're refilling all the time.
How about servers at the buffet of
Well, here's the thing. Depending on how many people you have, serving people is one way to do it. That will definitely make sure you don't run out of food. It will slow the process down. We've done events for 400 people, and we do a buffet, and I have 40 minutes to get 400 people through, and I set up 2 buffets with 4 lines, and it just goes very, very quickly. Also on a buffet, limit your choices, because the more choices you have, the worse it's going to be, because human nature is I need to look at everything and decide if I want that or not.
So you think having servers at the buffet would slow down the line?
Yes.
Why?
Well, you have one side.
Oh, okay.
The servers are on one side, the guests are on the other side. They're coming through, and now you have to physically put every element of the dinner onto their plate and move them through. So it does slow down.
Where if you don't have servers, you can have guests going down both sides of the buffet.
Correct. Right.
Interesting.
Yes. So, with that said, you say, well, what if I run out of food? Well, again, if as a caterer I have extra, it's not going to sink my ship financially, right? So, people can only eat so much.
It's very interesting. So you touched on a little bit of a horror story with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
Do you have any other horror stories?
I have nightmares that I have forgotten to do the wedding, and I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to plan the wedding and get the rentals. And my nightmare is that I'm trying to get it together myself because I forgot to hire staff, put my staff in place, and I had to get the rentals. And anyway, it's 5 steps forward, 10 steps back. I never ever get it done, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh. It's a dream.
You've been doing this for so long that you're dreaming about it. You're having
well, I used to. Not anymore. We have a big staff, and a seasoned staff and been with me for a long, long time. So we don't sweat it. I can do 400. We have one Thursday for 400, and I'll think about it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Now you're seasoned professional, as we heard in your bio earlier. When it comes to like catering a wedding and the service, you just touched on like the cleanup. Is that something that the catering company would typically provide? Is the servers, the busing? How does that part work?
Yeah, if you're going to a facility and you're having a wedding, you don't want to be responsible for cleaning anything up. You want it to end and you want to just walk out. Okay, so typically the staff should break down your dining room for you, put all the china and glassware, where it has to go, clean everything, so forth and so on. You as the guest should just be able to leave. Okay. Now, for budget purposes, they may have friends and family who want to help. And I've seen that as well. Everybody chips in, and that can keep some of the costs down. Again, it all depends on, is this a Pinterest wedding, and a fantasy wedding? Or is this like, hey, we're having a great party celebrating our marriage.
Right.
And the family's going to give a hand here to keep costs down, and that's okay to do that.
Yeah. So if they do want staff, is that something that you as a catering company would provide?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now, with liquor, it's a little different and a little more touchy of a situation, and we should touch on this because if you go to a catering house, they're going to have a liquor license, and they're going to charge you a big buck per person for unlimited liquor. I don't carry a liquor license. The liability is just ridiculous. I don't want to go down that road. Okay, so so our guests would just buy their liquor and hire a bartender to serve it.
Gotcha.
Okay, a lot cheaper to do it that way, right? I'm not a real proponent of putting too much liquor out at a wedding, especially with a young crowd. As you well know, you can see what can happen, and do you really want to have that happen? So I would think limiting the amount of liquor that's being served is probably a prudent thing to do, cost-wise and for liability reasons, okay? So it's one thing if you're at a hotel and your guest is staying there.
And
they just go upstairs.
Yeah, or if you have transportation provided, and you know that there's not going to be a bad situation.
Yeah. You're getting in your car. Who knows? You just can't keep track of everybody.
Yeah, something that we actually did at my wedding with Bryce. We had.
I think I was at that one.
You were at that one, which I don't know if people realize or not, but we had an open bar, but we closed it at certain times.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's almost like a baseball game. In the seventh inning, they stop selling beer. Okay, to give people a chance to straighten up before they hit the streets.
And like during our first dance, while food was being served, we closed the bar because we didn't want people up and down and in the bar line. We wanted them seated and watching the first dance, mother, father, the speeches. People had champagne at the table. Like they had something to drink, but they weren't getting a glass of whiskey every 3 seconds.
Good control measures. Yeah.
Right. So they got some drinks during cocktail hour, eased up. Then, we opened it up again during dancing, and then I forget the exact time, but we did cut it off, and then we went to a consumption bar where we said, okay, here's the budget, and once we hit that, close it down. And I don't even think we hit it, but it was a way for us to save money because the open bar per hour is a lot of money. So by kind of opening and closing it, we could save some here and there.
Today weddings easily could cost $250 a person, easily, if not more. Okay, so you got to really think about, as a young couple starting out, is that really something we want to do? Remember, it is a one-day affair. It's a party. It's a celebration. There are many ways that you could do it without breaking the bank. Okay, even if you have the money, it's a party, and you got to understand that, and just keep things simple and just calm it down, and don't let your heart get in the way of your mind, and make that proper decision, because later you're going to say, I wish I had that money for the down payment on the house, or whatever the case that you may want, or having a child come, or whatever.
Yeah.
And we just blew $100,000 on a wedding. It's like, wow. So
yeah, people the wedding day is the big thing, but they're starting a marriage. So I actually have on here, what is one piece of advice you want to give the bride or groom or whoever's listening, whether it be catering advice or marriage advice. How long have you been married?
32 years.
Oh, you didn't know I was going to test you today.
Well, I remember. I even know the day.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I could be a dad here. I mean, look, it's just row the boat in the same direction, communicate, make sure your finances are in order. If you take those three seriously, you should be fine. It's the expectations that are not met sometimes by one partner or the other. That's when things go awry. So keep it simple, communicate, and just, be real. And you should be okay.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here.
My pleasure.
For those of you listening, a little funny backstory is I've been friends with his children since, I don't even know, I was 7, 8 years old.
You were had little glasses on and your bangs, and you were just a little peanut.
I was a little peanut, but I had the luxury of when we were all hanging out, hey, let's go to Joey and Karina's house because their dad's a chef.
Well, I remember the one time you wanted to move in because your mom and dad were getting hard on you, and you thought it'd be easier at the Daidone residence, and your father called me to tell me that you wanted to move in. And
I don't even remember this.
I do. And to make sure, so I had to tell you that you would have to walk the dog and pick the poop up and do the dishes and things like that. So if you were going to come here, be prepared to actually do stuff.
Oh.
You decided to stay home.
I stayed home. I don't remember this at all, but apparently I wanted to move in. Well.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. So. All right. Well, it was great having you on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
I think that you gave some great insight into what brides and grooms should be looking out for. And I don't think it's something that they think about. When you think wedding, people think, oh, the flowers, the linens, and of course they want great food, but they don't think about the process of getting that great food and how certain logistical decisions can really make or break, and how, maybe not the traditional plated meal is going to be the best option. A buffet might be better, or stations is a great middle ground.
Right.
Might save you money.
Right.
Adds entertainment.
So one point, do you ever go to a wedding where there's, tables of 10 and the band is playing loud and you don't really know everyone at the table, and now the conversation is, nil because you can't, you don't really have anything to talk to about, but you can't also hear anyone. So now you're stuck at this table, okay, and now it becomes boring. So unless you're a dancer and you're getting out on the floor,
which a lot of people don't really
they
go
don't
dance.
really do. The younger crowd might do that, right? And
Maybe.
some older people who,
but not really till after dinner.
No,
typically.
Exactly. So with that said, if you had this, station thing going, and we've done weddings like this where it's more of a grazing thing and people are mingling and there's some seating and high tops and things of that nature, and people are just grazing onto different stations, and there's cocktails and they're just talking to everyone, and the bride and groom are mingling and so forth. And it doesn't have to be 4 hours. A 3-hour reception is fine. It's okay, but it's a memorable event. Okay, and people have a great time doing that, and it's not being overthrown by, I guess, the traditional things that have to be done at a wedding, right? So it's
I do
okay
think
to
a lot
break
of
mold.
people these days are kind of breaking traditions.
Yeah, break that mold a little bit, and it's okay to change things up and go fresh. It's a much better deal, I think.
Yeah. One question that just came to mind, if people are doing a buffet, how much time would you suggest to get a room of 100 people or 150 people, like in their day of timeline? How much time should they schedule for getting everybody through that buffet?
I would say 30 to 40 minutes, you can get 100 people through.
Okay.
Without a problem.
Okay.
I mean, I've done 440 minutes. So it all depends. What's on the buffet, the number of choices, so forth.
Gotcha.
And so on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was some great advice. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Great having you on here. Where can listeners find you?
Well, we don't have a website. That's how old-fashioned I am. I don't really need to have one.
I know. Can I email you?
Yes.
I have your email, dds4catering@gmail.com.
Correct. Right. And, I usually, people say, well, do you have a menu that we could choose from? I put all our menus together based on my conversations with you.
Yeah. Which, I mean, going back to a personal note, you've done like my graduation party. You did my book launch party too.
Yes, I did. And those are little things that we do. But when you get to a big event like a wedding, I need to sit and chat with you.
Yeah.
And just like what we just spoke about today, I need to understand where your mind is and what we're doing and how we're going to pull this off. And let me throw some common sense your way so you can understand what's going to work, what's not. Giving you a pamphlet with what I can do doesn't lend any of that information to you. So I like to sit, and I've done this forever. I've never, ever had a structured menu. I'll tell you what works. I'll tell you what worked at the last wedding or the last event we did, what's popular, what's not, okay? And I just know where the success levels are going to be with different cuisines. And, you know, so it just, that works. And look, I'm not looking to, I don't need 5 events every week to survive. I don't need that.
Well, you've shifted your business into the catering for schools, and that's your focus these days.
Yeah, that's that's the bulk of it. But we still have our catering department, which does the events. We do a lot of catering as well.
Yeah.
But you know, it's I don't need to have a website and do all this marketing to bring all the business in. We have enough. It's
referrals.
Yeah, it's referrals. Basically.
Well, I mean, because your work is good. It's great. So people refer you and word of mouth.
I don't think I've ever had an unsatisfied customer.
That's awesome.
I mean, in all my years, I've never said, this really was awful. You know.
Well, that's good. Well, if you guys want a trusted catering service, you're located in Boca Raton, Florida.
Yeah, right.
I'm guessing you'll travel in South Florida.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great having you on. I really appreciate your time and your advice. And I hope that the listeners enjoyed. Any last comments? Any last advice?
No. Just be diligent with your decision making. Okay. And for you, I've got some Parmesan cheese needs grating. And I expect you at my house to take care of that at once.
That is an inside joke from when I was about 12 years old, but thank you.
All right, Sydney, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Anytime.